Hi, this is Richard with the Lionheart Institute, and I want to talk to you about goals versus habits. Listen, goals are good, but habits make the difference. As a young man growing up in the inner city of Los Angeles, goals were what took me, that gave me clarification, it gave me focus, it gave me a drive, and it gave me the ability to decipher between what I wanted and what was just a dream. It gave me that sense of awakening that took my passions and gave it a focal point to where I could begin to take my fight or flight and put it in the right direction. And that's the power of a goal. Is a goal can take your mind from being unclear, uncertain, chaotic, and give you clarity of what you want to achieve. I call it the law of the vision magnet. When you begin to tune your vision and begin to tune your mind towards the thing that you desire, your mission will begin to manifest through your goals as you take step by step, starting with small goals, building to larger goals, until you attain that which you want to attain. Habits, however, are the difference maker in giving your dreams and your goals life. Confucius said, when your dreams or your goals become cloudy and you realize that you're not going to be able to reach them, don't change your goals, but change your plan of achieving them. One of my favorite quotes is by Zig Ziglar, and he says this: what you get by achieving your goals is far less important than what you become by achieving your goals. In other words, what you're doing when you're achieving goals is you're beginning to establish habits in your life or behaviors in your life that'll lead you from one goal to the next. Psychologists call this the flip back, flip up process or mentality, where you can flip back to an old goal that you achieved, embody that emotion, that feeling, that identity, and flip it up to the current reality, and all those emotions will energize you for the goal that you're trying to achieve in the current present tense and make that goal obtainable and real to you. I love this element of attaining your goals, and it's this: you cannot begin to move towards and attain new goals until you yourself begin to change. I learned that from Les Brown. I think our mentorship is so important when we begin to apply it, because the process of elevating from goal to goal to goal is not so much writing your new goal, which is important. It's not so much making that goal plain, which is important, but it's beginning to develop behaviors that are true to the state of that goal, so you begin to embody it and you can begin to manifest it. You can begin to walk in it, you can begin to live in it. Your goals are important, they are good, but your habits make all the difference. When we talk about achieving your goals, all of a sudden what we're beginning to really dialogue about is developing temperance in your life. The ability to be in control of yourself. There's nothing worse than to watch a person with extreme talent or potential begin to become overcome by their demons. Now, I call them demons, but really they're addictions. They're those cravings that begin to overwhelm our ability to remain temperate and be able to remain disciplined or in control of our senses. Temperance, when you move towards and become like that which you desire the most, is one of the most important embodying skills that you can achieve in your life, because what that does is it empowers you to develop and mature cravings that don't control you. They say that the fire that develops our ability to go from achieving our goals to creating behaviors that are consistent with what our goal is and what eventually is going to lead to the difference in what we accomplish in our life are cravings. Now, I know that that's crazy to think about it, because we always think about cravings in a negative light. But cravings can be the most powerful thing that we condition in our lives to make ourselves successful. What do I mean by that? When you begin to ignite your dreams and your goals with your cravings, then all of a sudden your energy flows the direction of creating habits or behaviors that are consistent with those cravings. Now, there is a difference between creating cravings that are a desire, something that you long for, that energizes you, that makes you desire to do more in life, and addictions. And a lot about what I'm going to be talking about is not so much on the craving side of addiction, which I encourage you. In this generation, there is no pride in keeping yourself locked away with an addiction. If you have it, I encourage you to seek help, because people can help you and empower you to turn those addictions addictions into cravings that are healthy, that move you towards and overcome those obstacles of drugs, alcohol, and such kind of cravings that are detrimental to your life, such as gambling and other addictions that can steal, rob, and destroy your life. But I'm talking more about desires that are healthy and for the good and in alignment with your goals. See, the goal is the thing that ignites a craving in your life, that helps you overcome the environment that you're in, the circumstance that you're in, and the obstacles that are in front of you, that gives you that fire, that passion to fight and work every single day. A lot of people ask me, how, Richard, did you make it out of the inner city of Los Angeles? You were kicked out of 7 elementary schools by the time you graduated from elementary school. You were in fight after fight. Most people thought that you would either be dead or in jail by the time you were in your 20s. How did you overcome those things? Well, my cravings became so strong to overcome the environment that I was in, that I became fortunate that those cravings helped me create behaviors that kept me just above the skim of failure. Now, failure is a magnet. It will pull you towards it, and it will begin to devour your life. So you've got to begin to fight the law of failure. It's the mindset, it's the mood, it's the attitude that people adopt when they make themselves a victim. Now, that is not to pretend that there aren't situations in our life that will victimize us. But what we have to do if we're going to begin to overcome those victim states is we've got to adopt a mindset of creating behaviors that keep us above the energy or the attacks of those outside forces. People ask me all the time, Richard, how did you achieve so much in such a short time in your life? When you were born, doctors told you that you'd never walk, that you were going to be limited in the things that you could do in life, and yet you developed an inner fire that enabled you to overcome the inner city and become something extraordinary in other people's eyes and in your own eyes in your life, that you became a goal achiever, not just a dream believer. What happened that enabled you to do it? Well, I fell in love with this game called football that enabled me to have a craving for success that became so strong that it pulled me in the opposite direction of failure. Now, don't fail yourself in believing that failure doesn't have an energy. Failure itself has an energy that will pull you towards it. And there's certain things in our life that become stumbling blocks that will enable that energy to catch us and pull us in the wrong direction. One of the worst things that happens to a young person's life is the negative habits that they begin to develop in their youth. What I'm encouraging you is the same thing that Benjamin Franklin encouraged people, is that the habits that we establish early in life are so extremely important. Now, it's not to say that we can't change our habits or change our performance or change our behaviors and able to change the outcomes that we're going to achieve. But like Mark Twain said, a habit can't be tossed out the window. You have to coax it down the stairs step by step. In other words, it's much more important that you start aggressively, and the younger and the earlier you start a trade, developing good behaviors, because it's not impossible to change wrong behaviors. As a matter of fact, the system of cue, response, reward is the process by which you can do that. Specifically, a great book, Atomic Habits, is a book that I would encourage you to grab and begin to meditate on. And it begins to deal with that process of cue, reward, or response, and reward, enable you to program your mindset for success. But you have to learn step by step how to coax a bad habit out and begin to replace it with a good habit. The difference between cravings and desires can be very subtle. But I love what Abraham Lincoln says. He says, discipline is choosing between what is good now and what is best over the long haul. See, that is the discipline that it takes and the mindset that it begins to take to begin to make sacrifices right now for the long-term good. In other words, the candy bar tastes good right now, but I know the long-term result of the candy bar is going to be gained weight, cavities, and so forth. An addiction to sugar is one of the worst addictions that you can ever develop in your life. But the desire in the now to taste something sweet, to fill your hunger, can oftentimes seduce you to sell out now and sacrifice later. John Maxwell says it this way, and I love it. He says, play now, pay later. Pay now, play later. In other words, when you begin to develop the right habits and the right behaviors in your life, all of a sudden what happens long term is you begin to reap those rewards in a greater measure, and you're able to more fully enjoy your life. That's why Aristotle says that good behaviors developed in your youth make all the difference in the world. When you begin to develop good habits early on in life, it will make you a tremendous success. So people ask me all the time, Richard, what is it that made you succeed to such a high level when you face so many obstacles that were laid out in front of your pathway? It was simple. By developing those habits very early in my life, those cravings to succeed, those primal desires to impress my audience, to impress my coach, to garnish my parents' approval, to achieve in the midst of my competitors. As I flourished in those things and I began to develop those things in my life, those cravings became stronger and stronger, and those as neuroscience would tell you, those synapses, that belief system, that cycle of neurons in my mind that laid out the track of behavior became more and more ingrained with automatic response. In other words, we don't have to think about breathing. We don't have to think about our heartbeat. We don't have to think about blinking. We don't have to think about how to respond to when something gets in our nose, we sneeze. Those are automatic responses to stimulus. Well, when you begin to develop behaviors in your life, they become, the more you do it, they become more and more ingrained in your mindset until they become automatic in response. Scientists will tell you and researchers will tell you that 40 to 50, 45% of our behaviors in life are not based on just making decisions on a daily basis or a moment by moment decision, the process, but our behaviors are based on automatic responses or behaviors that are programmed in our subconscious mind. The reason that we do that is because there's so many choices in life. Turn left, turn right, turn right, turn left, go forward, go backwards, buy the shiny thing, buy the other shiny thing. We are hit with so much stimulus of advertisement and options in life that the more we become consistent in making decisions or behaviors, the more ingrained they become so that we don't have to think about it. Atomic Habits begins to lay it out this way, and I think it's a very simple process for our mind to begin to adopt and to begin to apply in our life, is this. We get a cue or a stimulus that happens in our life. We begin to develop a routine based on that cue, and then we begin to develop a mindset of reward based on what we believe will be the outcome of our reaction or response. The nice thing about the human mind is that we are able to program our responses to cues. We're able to logically think about what routines are going to get us the best outcomes. And so we begin to program a response to a cue. Alarm clock goes off, we hit the alarm, we wake up, go take a shower, get ready for our day. The reward is the opportunity to go to work, which of course the reward is not necessarily going to work unless you're miserable at home, but the true reward is in the cash that comes from it. There can be some rewards established with going to work, like success, like achievement, like working hard. Those are conditioned responses that you can mature in your life, and they're important virtues, I would call them, to begin to mature if you're going to succeed. Listen, Einstein said it probably best, that the world that we live in is a world that was created by our thinking. And the only way to change that world is to change, hence, our thinking. We've got to begin, if we want to change our behavior that's going to change the rewards that we receive in life based on the cues that we receive, we've got to begin to change the way that we think. If you want to climb higher, you have to change your level of thinking from where you are to the next level. That's why coaching is so important. That's why mentors are so important. That's why you making a decision to adopt and find people that will hold you accountable to the decisions of temperance that you have in your life are so valuable. Accountability partners are extremely successful in helping you make a routine in your life that's going to be able to help you mature to the next level. So let's just take a quick moment to talk about triggers that are in your life. For some of you, triggers are going to lead to negative outcomes. For others, triggers are going to lead to positive outcomes because you've premeditated not only the goal that you have, but you've premeditated the response that you're going to have to the cue. Some people get in extraordinary fights that they seem to lose their sense of sensibility. And the reason why is because they have a cue or a sentence that will be stated that will cause in them a response that they don't necessarily desire, that will get them some kind of a reward. Now, reward is a very tricky topic, because a reward is not something necessarily that we think of as good. It's not something that we necessarily is going to get us $1 million, or going to make us the most famous person on campus, or going to give us a new car. Oftentimes, reward is as simple as attention. Sometimes it's as simple as a conversation. So that's why the cyclical nature of cue, response, reward can lead you in a negative direction, because if you don't establish what you want the reward to be and what a healthy reward is going to be, you can begin to respond in ways to just get a reward, that sense of feeling that you accomplished what you desired. But I think it's really important that you sit down and you begin to ask yourself on a regular basis, why do I do the things that I do? And what is the outcome or the reward that I'm seeking when I do these negative actions? Sometimes they're tied to our youth. Sometimes they're tied to false expectations. Sometimes they're tied to this belief system. That is what psychologists would call a paradigm or a mindset. It's a belief about the world that we live in that happens over a gradual period of time, but we can control that mindset and we can control those paradigms if we're intentional about setting our goal or setting our reward as what we want to accomplish. And so the goal is good. It's important because all of a sudden now we have something that we recognize as the reward we want to achieve. But the real thing that makes the difference are the habits or the routines that we establish en route to those rewards. Jim Rohn says it this way: motivation or the goal is what gets us started. Habits are what keep us going. So by establishing routines or habits in our life that are based on us pre-thinking, okay, what do I want my response to be in this situation, and what is the outcome of reward that I want to gain by it, we can begin to gradually change our life from a temporary reward mindset to a big picture mindset, or a long-term reward mindset. So what is it, for instance, that makes someone begin to set money aside when they have very little? The long-term reward of collecting that money and be able to purchase big ticket items begins to drive the routine of saving despite the current climate. And so those people begin to experience their reward in greater and greater ways. Hence, they begin to save more money, earn more money as a response of having that extra capital, and they begin to climb the ladder of success. These are lessons that unfortunately aren't often taught in school, but these are the lessons that will transform our life. So maybe you're at a workplace where all of a sudden it doesn't make sense to make those 5 extra calls. You want the reward of a little leisure. You've earned it. Well, by making those 5 extra calls, all of a sudden you're beginning to stack 5 calls upon 5 calls upon 5 calls. And by the end of the week, you have 25 extra calls compared to anyone else. Now, that may seem extremely small, minute in detail, but how good of a closer are you? If you're a good closer, you're 80% closing on those sales. If you're a moderate closer, you're 50% closing. If you're a bad closer, you're closing at 20 to 30%. But if you've made those 25 extra calls that other people don't make because they've sought the reward of communicating and hanging out and chilling with their coworkers, where you've made the reward the long-term goal of becoming the best salesperson that you can become, all of a sudden that closing percentage, let's say you were just doing 100 extra calls a week, becomes 80 extra closes, or 50 extra closes, or God forbid even 20 extra closes. And I'm telling you, even as a bad salesperson, 20 extra closes begins to take you from the bottom of the ring to middle of the rank to the top of the rank. And the more you develop these behaviors, all of a sudden you become better and better at what you do. And so for me as a young person, the thing that made me succeed at such a high level, particularly in sports, is I found the cue of competition. When there was the cue of competition, my routine began that I had to outwork and outperform everyone else around me. I began to develop a mindset that the reward was not necessarily just the trophy. My reward was the competition itself. My reward was out competing my competitor. And because of that mindset of attacking the person psychologically, attacking the person emotionally, attacking the person physically, even though they might be a better athlete than me, that competitive nature began to give me a reward system that helped me climb through difficult times. A lot of times what happens is we set the reward as the wrong thing. We set the reward as the shiny trophy. We set the reward as the Ferrari. But if you set the process as the reward, something when the context of that process as the reward, then you're going to find yourself being more and more competitive than the people around you and achieving more and more goals along the way, because you're not setting some distant out goal. You're setting a goal that's right in front of you, very obtainable, like competition. Like, I just want to compete. That passion will drive you to success because nobody else around you set their goal or their reward to that level. They've set it out to, I want to earn a vacation, or I want to do XYZ, that is so big that they never attain it. Therefore, they begin to shrink back in their behaviors because their mind begins to play the trick on them. You'll never achieve it. So let me hit you, of course, with Vince Lombardi. I mean, you're going to love it. If you've never heard this quote, it's something you're going to want to write down. It's something I want you to comment in the comments about. It's something that is worth even sharing this video with a friend or a family member, a student athlete that you know, or maybe somebody that is trying to climb the ladder at their workplace, or maybe they're changing careers. It's this quote: winning is not a sometime thing. It's an all-time thing. You don't win once in a while. You don't do things right once in a while. You do them right all the time. Winning is a habit. Unfortunately, so is losing. So in short, what I want you to do in just a little bit of review is I want you to think about the behaviors that you have going on in your life, the routines that you have going on in your life, and what are the cues that trigger those responses. See, this is the 4 laws that go into atomic habits, and it's this: cue, craving, response, reward. In other words, you begin to get a set of data. The alarm goes off. You walk in, you see a set of cookies, and you want that cookie. It creates a craving in your life. So now you begin to interpret that. That's the beauty of the human mind, is you get that cue or that data, and you have the opportunity to respond to it with physical action or a thought process. When you begin to think about the things that you want and the rewards that you want, you can begin to make wise interpretations of how you should respond to that cookie jar. You can decide, you know what, I'm not really that hungry, or you can be led by your cravings. The next thing that happens is a responsive action. And I want that responsive action to be massive, particularly in the beginning, to establish a culture of habits and routines in your life that are significant. Most importantly, goals are good. So establish what that goal is. What is that reward going to be? By making the right routine happen. And the more routines that you can put together to help gain the largest amount of reward, the more likely you are to stick to that process of achievement. Really, in achieving your goals, it's all about establishing an identity of behavior. The more you do an action based on the cue, that's like placing a vote. The more votes you place, the more that portion of your character, that portion of your identity begins to be identified, enlarged, and consume your life. The more that consumes your life, the more the picture of that image you become, and that's how you can begin to succeed at extremely high levels in your life. So here's how you create those habits. Make those cues obvious. When you see something that you desire, like it's time to go to the gym, make it be the first moment you touch the steering wheel of getting in your car. Make the response and the reward process of thinking about it, the discipline and the attraction to do it, make it as large as possible. So maybe you think about every time you get into the car, you touch the steering wheel, you're going to be able to go to the gym and you're going to be able to kiss your wife. That reward stimulus is going to begin to create a routine and a habit of joy and fulfillment. that is not only connected to the process of doing 10 push-ups, but it's also connected to the response of the kiss from your wife. And then obviously, make it as satisfying and rewarding as possible. Make it as fun of a time as you possibly can. Every time you respond to the stimulus, that you make that reward as big as possible. If you want to change a negative habit, just go in the opposite direction. Make your stimulus or the cue as small as possible. Make it as invisible as possible. Hide it as much as you possibly can. Make your reaction or response as negative to it. I've seen people that they've had the rubber band around their wrist, and every time they think a bad thought, they pop that rubber band and it reminds them, yuck, I don't want to be a part of that. I've seen people take a quarter and put it in the swear jar when they want to break the habit of swearing, or $1. And then what that's going to do is it's going to give you now immediate feedback, so you know, hey, this is not good. I don't want the long-term effects of this either. So it begins to diminish the reward process in your life of the joy of doing that. Perhaps the most difficult and challenging of all of the responses to creating a routine is sometimes you're going to have to significantly change your environment. One of the easiest ways to change the cue in your life or the stimulus in your life is to change your environment. When you've been in an environment so long that you're used to all the cues, sometimes it's very difficult for you to decipher between the cues that you respond positive to and the cues that you respond negatively to. That's why it's so important that we begin to stretch ourselves to get outside of our comfort zones, because it makes how we respond to the cue conscious. It brings it to our awareness, and then we can reestablish new behaviors that can lead us towards new rewards. Now, I'm not telling you, obviously, to abandon your friends, your family, or those that feed into your life and that you have valuable relationships with. I'm not talking about a sense of abandonment, but I am talking about a sense of change. Change your environment so that you can begin to elevate your mindset and get to the next level. Sometimes it's as simple as elevating your mindset or changing your environment by reading a book, creating new ways of stimulus. Because if you show me the top 10 books that you're reading, I'll show you the next decade of your life. However, the more painful situation is, sometimes you're going to have to change very dear friendships in your life. Not to throw them away, but to set them on the back burner so that you can really cook in yourself new responses, new mindsets, so you can attain new rewards. And what I mean by that is, if you show me your five best friends, I'm definitely going to be able to show you the next 5 years of your life. So it's very important that you can sometimes embrace change by changing your environment, creating new cues, new stimulus, defining what that stimulus is going to be, what you want your reaction to that stimulus to be, or your response to that stimulus to be, and then defining what that reward is going to be. The bigger you build that reward, the bigger you're going to build the cycle of success, and why I say that yes, goals are good, but habits are going to make the change in your life, or the difference in your life. Start establishing good routines, good habits in your life, and I promise you I'll see you at the top. As it's always said, that's where we want to be. Go ahead and be that Zig Ziglar today. You are God's highest form of creation, and you deserve to excel in life. Hey, I'm so very excited that you hung out with us through this episode. It's been a blessing to be able to share with you. I hope that it'll encourage you, and I hope that it'll challenge you to create new habits in your life. Your goals are good. They're going to give you energy. They're going to give you life. They're going to motivate you and give you stimulus. But the habits that you create in your life, they're going to make all the difference. So I encourage you, begin to own the cues. Begin to meditate and think about, what are the cues that create the responses in my life? Think about what you want those responses to be. How do you want them to trigger you? What do you want them to excite in you? And what rewards are you going to get by following good routines or habits in your life so that you can be a success, not only today, but over the long haul? And that's really what you deserve. Thanks for spending the time. I hope you'll like, share, and comment, and get this out to as many people as you can, because there's a world that'll benefit from the mindset of how to make a difference in their lives. God bless you.